Hello and welcome to another Auto Buyer's Guide podcast. Today we're going to be talking about plug-in hybrids and some of the studies that we've seen resurfacing yet again. I'm going to jump on my soapbox and we're going to talk about some cheap cars in North America and some of the facts around them. And, we might be talking about some electric Jeeps and some other things and an electric bicycle. So Travis, this bad penny just keeps coming back out of the machine.
And you don't just mean bad lighting in hotel rooms, do you?
No.
No. I keep seeing this report, and it's hard for me to understand it, and at the same time, I feel compelled to believe it, and that hurts even more.
The report, everybody, that we're talking about is based on data from Europe saying that emissions in plug-in hybrid vehicles are higher than expected, and that people aren't plugging them in. So to this, I will say a few things. The first one is the core of this study is vehicles primarily in Germany, in the EU, and they're talking about emissions versus WLTP projections. Well, no shit, Sherlock. WLTP projections are dreadful. I mean,
we got to
Oh,
start
wow.
with the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Is that WLTP is in any way reflective
Yeah.
of everyday driving or realistic expectations on
It's just
efficiency.
straight trash.
Yeah, if you think the EPA numbers are bad, and I do think the EPA numbers are bad, you should check in at the WLTP. But it's so much focused on, and the reason we see so many plug-in hybrids over in Europe is because the WLTP is so friendly towards hybrid or plug-in hybrids that have anywhere, a 30 to 50 mile range, because it covers almost the entire test loop, essentially, in EV mode before it fires on the engine at all. So you're going to get these skyrocket numbers. You're always going to get below that, but then you do need to plug it in.
Indeed. And so, starting on the foundation of WLTP is straight trash. We have to build on that by saying the numbers are not representative of the North American car buying public. That's the big thing with these studies. So when you dive deeper into the numbers, most of the studies, there have been a few studies that have parroted this, but most of the studies have been focusing on company cars. Remember that in several markets in Europe, they're tax advantaged reasons that your job may come with a car, basically. And these companies are buying plug-in hybrids for their fleets, not because customers are wanting them, not because the employee driving the car is wanting them, but for their green missions, their emissions profiles, their tax benefits, whatever the reason may be. The company is doing it. So say you work for Siemens, mid-level position, your job comes with a car, and they're like, here, plug-in hybrid Kia for you. Great. Okay, but I live in a tiny flat on the 50th floor of a building somewhere, and I have nowhere to plug it in. Of course I'm not going to plug it in. If this had been a personal choice by that consumer, they probably would not have bought a plug-in hybrid.
No, maybe a hybrid, but
maybe
they know they don't have a spot to plug in, especially when they get to work, the place that bought them in the car. It's not like they have charging there either.
We contrast that with North America, specifically the United States. It's a very different environment. People are buying cars because they are choosing the vehicle. Even though there was a time where company cars were more of a thing in the US, because of America's tax structure, it's no longer advantageous to do that. So now, by and large, people go out and buy their own cars, right? And they're buying cars that fit their desires, their lifestyle, their charging reality. So and remember that new cars are by and large purchased by upper middle income earners living in suburbia that own their own home. The exact demographic that can charge their car. People have driveways and garages, etc. Yes,
even if you're not putting in a level 2 charger, you don't need one for a plug-in hybrid, so you could plug into a 110.
And yes, there are people that live in apartments that buy new cars, but we're not talking about the majority there. The majority are single-family homeowners. So the problem here is we don't have actual plug-in hybrid data for the United States now, but we do know what Chevy Bolt owners did. You had a Volt with a V.
I had a Volt in the household, at the very least, and I had a Bolt in a household at one point. So I've done both of those, and both of those charged off of a standard 110.
Yeah, and guess what? You also had a plug-in hybrid Audi, and how many times did these vehicles get plugged in your driveway?
Every single day.
Yep.
Maybe multiple times a day, depending on if I was bumping around. But
And the evidence that we have from most plug-in hybrids that out there that manufacturers have been able to collect and send this data on, most notably General Motors with their Chevy lineup, they're
Mhm.
plugged in all the time. It does appear that maybe Wrangler owners are not doing that. I would say on the scale of plug-in hybrids where people are plugging in regularly, I
Mhm.
would guess, maybe I don't know this for sure, but I would guess that Wrangler's probably the bottom of the pile because they were definitely pushing that hard in some markets where you had to order other engines like California. Theoretically, the dealer had to order other engines. The normal allocation was just Wrangler 4xe. But
Plus, I've heard more than one story about people saying that their dealer told them, the salesman said, and you don't even need to plug these in.
I'm sure that there are some people that do that. I would assume, though, that the larger share, most plug-in hybrids are plugged in on a regular basis in the United States simply because of this demography difference. The fact that these people are choosing a plug-in hybrid, they haven't just been given a plug-in hybrid because
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah, and I will say, there's not just the efficiency benefit of it. We were driving the RAV4. We just posted those videos a day or two ago, and one of the comments said, "Why didn't you plug? Why didn't you charge this car before you drove it?" Well, the reason we didn't is because we didn't have a chance to. But more importantly, the car is faster when it's plugged in. I mean,
Hmm.
you have to have some state of charge to be able to get the full boost from the electric motors. Your car's quicker if it's a plug-in hybrid if you've plugged it in, and that's something a lot of people are going to be down for.
Hmm. And I could see, that's definitely one of those reasons that people might want to plug in. But I think the bigger one is simply you can stretch out your fuel stops. Again,
Yeah.
this is one of those things that is not as easy to do in many places in Europe in certain living situations. But, in the US, the average commuter, average being in air quotes here, that's buying a new
Mhm.
car, they live in suburbia, commute to somewhere to work, and they are able to charge. So you can really stretch out your gas station visits, which are kind of a pain. And
Mhm.
that's kind of the handiest thing.
Even if it doesn't save you a bunch of money at the pump, let's just say it's a dead even between electric and gas. I would still plug in so that I don't have to stop very often. I mean, that just
Hmm.
seems almost like a luxury benefit to me.
Yeah. Speaking of luxury and affordability, etc.,
Mm,
this next topic is from a comment section on one of our posts that really had me scratching my head because
mm.
we often see when we're talking about new vehicles, affordability. People say, "Oh my God, who can afford this thing?" Well, the average cost of the average new car is over $50,000 now.
I mean, it seems like it was a big leap at the last time we got this number. I mean, it was
Hmm.
in the high 40s, but now it just seems like a landmark. We've
Yeah.
crossed the five.
Yes, so very expensive for new cars, but simultaneously, when we talk about affordable new cars, especially some of the most affordable vehicles in North America, we do get a significant portion of commenters saying, "That's just terrible. I would never get that. Anybody should be, disgraced if they buy one of these things new." The clear answer is go buy a used car.
And it's always an option, but is it a clear answer? Because the used cars, especially as new cars get more expensive, so too do used cars.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sort of a rubber band effect there. You might find a moment in time where, ooh, hey, that's a better deal. There's also a moment in time where it's not as beneficial to get a used car because of how affordable the new car is
Hmm.
comparatively, right? With incentives and discounts and those sorts of things. The other one is you're not getting a new car, and there are
Hmm.
reasons to do so. I mean, and there's a ton of reasons to do so. There's financing, there's leasing options, which is generally not
Hmm.
available on a used car. So you're looking at incentivized rates or lower
Hmm.
rates or longer terms at a more affordable, money factor, those sorts of things. You can also, of course, get warranty that comes standard with the car instead of
Hmm.
having to maybe purchase more of it.
Yep. And this is where I need to get on my soapbox a little bit here because we've said it before and I'll say it again. Affordable transportation in the US is a gap that I think if we as a car buying public could get over some of the scary factor of having Chinese
Mhm.
vehicles or Indian vehicles in the United States, this is a gap that could be filled by them. And there are ways around this with tariff structures. Say big tariff on Chinese manufactured cars, except if it's under $15,000, then no tariff or
Mhm.
something like that. that could just make vehicles so much more affordable, because we have lost the Nissan Versa in North America, and this is one of those questions that some commenters were like, "Why is anybody sad that the Nissan Versa is gone?" And the answer is because it was good, honest, affordable transportation. Was it a
Yeah.
fantastic car? Was it fun to drive? No, but it got you from A to B, and it got you from A to B very, very affordably. It
Mhm.
is $18,635 after destination right now for the least expensive model. This is the most expensive the Versa has been, for
Yeah.
inflation, etc. But you still get power windows, power door locks. You get a radio, a touchscreen, Bluetooth, autonomous emergency braking, and 35 miles per gallon combined. Importantly, though, for this discussion, you also get cash on the hood to make it a little bit less
Mhm.
expensive. And most buyers with credit scores over about 650, 675 should be getting 4.9% financing for 72 months.
Which is not only a couple points lower than you're going to get on most new car loans that are not
Hmm.
incentivized by the manufacturer, but that's going to be for a 60-month term, not 72, and
Hmm.
certainly going to be cheaper than you'll find on used cars.
Yeah, so we have to kind of go down this rabbit hole a little further. So the key reason to buy for especially someone maybe that's young, starting off, graduated high school, graduated college, has their first job, something like that, and they need to get from A to B. I will tell you, as an employer with employees that have had
Hmm.
reliable and unreliable cars in the past,
Hmm.
being able to depend on an employee showing up every day is critical, not just for me as an employer, but for the employee in the way that their employer is going to treat them, look at them, review them when annual
Hmm.
reviews and bonuses and payroll actions come up, etc. The very stability of their job is dependent on them getting to work on time on a regular basis. And so vehicle
Hmm.
reliability is definitely a thing. So when you take a look at new versus used, I think people do get lost in this that are older and and wealthier. So the older and
Mm.
wealthier you get, the more you're likely to look down on someone and say, "Well, why are they making this decision to buy a cheap, nasty car? I like my
Hmm.
BMW. They clearly should just buy a used BMW or a used whatever."
Hmm.
Well, and it's funny because that is actually the answer that I get quite frequently. Is like, "Why would you buy a Nissan Versa? You could buy a used 3 Series." And I'm like,
Uh-huh. You
"Are are
could.
are these the same people? Like, is this the same shopper demographic here?" But let's
Yeah, sounds like we're talking to car people.
Yeah, but let's dive into this one here a bit, because
Yeah.
on that Versa, you're going to get a 3-year, 36,000-mile warranty, a 5-year,
Hmm.
60,000-mile powertrain warranty. Importantly, also emissions warranty, rust warranty, etc., all on
Hmm.
new cars. And because it's a new car, you can at the same time buy a Nissan factory extended warranty for about $1,400 that will take you all the way up to 8 years and 120,000 miles.
Yeah, and
So,
consider those your worry-free miles, right? I
right.
do not have to think about this. If something goes wrong, it's going to be covered.
And you'll still, when you get there up towards 100,000 miles, it could be covered. You're still going to maybe miss a day or a morning of work because your car died and you have to find some other way to get to the office. But this is
Hmm.
not going to be a repeated thing where it's like, "Oh, my car has been parked and I'm depending on family members or friends or something else to get me to the office." Or, unfortunately, I know a lot of people use public transportation, but that can be unreliable and a source of stress for people as well if it doesn't work for you in your situation.
If
So,
if you have it available, if you're looking at it as a
if you
last-minute
Mhm.
alternative, you go, "Oh my gosh, my car won't start. How do I bus,
How do I
train, or
bus?
whatever?" Oh my
Mhm.
goodness, those options are going to be limited.
Yeah. So what else could you get? Let's run through this exercise
Mhm.
here. So I was digging around to try and see what kind of Honda Civic you could get with low miles around
Sure.
this price point. It appears that you'd be basically between 2016 and 2020 with low miles, maybe somewhere around
Mhm.
30,000 miles there, or you could get a newer model with higher miles, so 2022 to 2023 with maybe 60 to 90,000 miles. We're
Mhm.
talking averages here, everybody. So, depending on
Yeah.
your area, you may find a better or worse deal. Um, this is interesting because when we're talking about a 2016 Civic, for instance, we go that far back, we're talking about a
Mhm.
car that's almost 10 years old. So there's
Mhm.
certainly going to be seals and belts and things like that that are going to start going, even on a low mileage car.
Yeah,
We
in the next couple of
also
years,
Yeah, you
if nothing
also
else,
aren't
yeah.
going to find the same kind of standard safety tech. So no autonomous emergency braking standard in that generation of Civic. Smaller
Mhm.
screens, You won't find CarPlay in a lot of those models, whereas you would in certain versions of the Versa, not the base model, but certain versions.
Right.
There won't be any warranty left. There won't be a rust
Oh,
warranty, no emissions warranty left, right? None of that. So you could have a catalytic converter issue that you'd be on the hook for. But there are also some hidden costs. So, like we talked in previous episodes, financing is a big, big problem for used cars.
yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you're looking at 7-8%,
Mm-hmm.
even with a good credit score, because when you look at the bank, the problem is that the more used, the more likely someone seems to be to default on that loan, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why they charge you more. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's why it's more, because you have to essentially cover anyone else who may have ended up
Mm-hmm.
defaulting on it. So the higher the miles, the older the car, the less expensive it is. That's when those interest rates start to climb pretty
Yep.
steeply. And if you're somebody who, in this case, you're trying to save a few bucks, and I guess for this argument, let's say it's out of necessity, right? You're not just trying to be cheap; you have to be cheap. You're saying, how can I make my dollar stretch further? You're not
Mm-hmm.
somebody who's going to be paying that car off in advance. So you're like, oh, I have an 8.5% interest rate for 60
Mm-hmm.
months, but don't worry, I'll pay it off in 3 years. That's probably not where you're at in this situation. So you're going to pay all of the
Mm-hmm.
interest.
And if we look at the averages as of the time we're recording this video, currently, if you have an 800 plus FICO score, the average is 7.1% on a used car loan. Remember
Yeah.
that they're still repossessable in the event of default, but what's
Hmm.
the bank going to do with a 10-year-old Civic, right? It's like they're going to be
They're
like,
going to have to spend money, time, money, and resources to get their money back out of it.
exactly. So
Yeah.
most new car buyers in this range of 600, FICO score 600 to 700 in that range, where some new car buyers could be because they don't have a lot of credit history, they're going to be in the 10 to 13% range. In that same range where you could get a 4.9% interest on a new car, you're going to
Yeah.
be up at 10-13%. So here's how that works out. So new Nissan Versa, $18,000 financed. We're talking $290 a month, $2,800 of interest over the term of the loan. If you have a
Hmm.
used car at 7.1%, you're paying almost $1,300 more in interest, so $308 a month. At 13%, you're paying $5,112 more in interest over the term of the loan, so
Yeah.
$361 a month. That's a pretty big difference. Then we have to add the actual cost to own it. And this is what I think a lot of people don't realize, especially with cheap cars like the Versa. The Versa is
Hmm.
almost always on the list of the least expensive cars to own and operate in the US.
Hmm.
So, according to Edmunds, the total cost of ownership for 5 years, excluding financing and depreciation, et cetera, just the actual cost to roll that thing down the road for 5 years, fuel and everything, it's $24,157 for a Versa. A 2019 Civic, it's going to be about $4,000 more expensive. And if we take a look at what a lot of people rationally or irrationally do when they are used
Sure.
car shopping in this way, they're like, well, instead of that new Versa, I could go buy myself a Mazda CX-5, or
Mm.
maybe they see a neighbor selling them their old Acura TLX, and they're like, "Ooh,
Hmm.
I could get an Acura." Well, how does that sort out? Well, on top of the finance problem, where again you'll be paying $5,000 more over the term of the loan for financing any used car at 13%, a CX-5's operational costs are going to be five, six, $7,000 higher over 5 years. An Acura
Yeah.
TLX, $12,000 higher expected operational costs than that Versa. So,
The thing one thing I think people aren't going to factor in is also going to be the cost of insurance. And
mm-hmm,
insurance is wild because it varies depending on who you are, even in the household, right? And
mm-hmm,
if you're the neighbor and you cross some imaginary line, obviously credit scores have been looked at, and that sort of thing. So insurance is one of those things where, oh, I'm buying a cheaper car, it's going to be cheaper insurance. That is not necessarily the case, especially if you're looking at something like a Civic, an Accord, a Corolla, or a Camry, which are
mm-hmm,
generally speaking the most stolen vehicles out there, mostly because of volume. But also, you're looking at there's more equipment on that vehicle. So you got a base
mm-hmm,
model Versa, well, then its value is going to be inherently lower in ways at all times than the higher equipped model. And especially if you have coverage that says, hey, it's comprehensive, I got the replacement coverage. If the insurance has to pay out for you to get a replacement model, they're paying a lot more if you got that Civic than they are if you got the Versa.
mm-hmm, definitely true.
Mhm.
And the bottom line of this is if you are telling people, your friends, your family members, especially people starting off that are maybe, in a financial position where they're really deciding, based on $100 here or there, is the vehicle affordable? Can this get me to a better place in life? And that's theoretically what you want to do when you start off, right? Is you want to
Mhm.
build yourself up to a better place in life. This is why we need affordable transportation that's reliable in the US. If you buy again a Nissan Versa in just this experiment, but it could be anything inexpensive versus a used thing that's going to cost you more long term.
Even though
What
we know that list is getting shorter and shorter.
exactly, like, what could that person do with $300 a month? They could have, a better apartment, which is probably a
Mhm.
better place to spend your money. You could save the money, which is gonna be an even better thing to do. So you'd actually be
Mhm.
able to save for a rainy day, for retirement. So many Americans don't have a rainy day fund. If you put that $300 a month even in a savings account, you'd be able to have, an extra month or 2 months worth of salary if something goes wrong. And of
Mhm.
course, if something goes wrong and you need to find a new job, you're only paying, $290 a month for your car, not 600 something plus a month for your car. And that's
Right.
going to
When
be an
that budget
awful lot
gets
easier.
tight, it draws a lot
Mhm.
less from it. And again, if we're talking about getting ahead, you could also go, stand back. Well, maybe it means you could upgrade your wardrobe. And let's say
Mhm.
you unfortunately your workplace is one where if you don't look the part, you're not getting the part. Well, you could look the part. You could go ahead and get a gym membership or a better gym membership that's closer. You
Mhm,
could take
mhm.
care
Are
of
you
yourself a
project
bit
are
more.
you
You could be
projecting here on your wardrobe and gym
no,
membership
not at
choices?
all.
Okay.
You could
Okay.
also, although I was at a hotel without a gym, and I was like, "Oh, I could really use a gym." First world problems. The other one, you could
I'm
eat
just I'm
better.
just wondering about the shirt that's going on here. It's
The shirt's just fine. I don't know.
okay,
I don't
okay,
know what
okay. It's very, very Pacific Northwest. Very, yeah. Very
well,
on
I
brand.
would have it blended in Arizona. I spent a lot of
Mhm,
time there the
mhm.
last couple of weeks, and yeah, it seemed right at home.
I will say
It's just
this
one of those
this
things where you could invest in yourself in different
yes.
ways than just the car.
And if I were gonna put my Susie Orman cap on, hopefully
Mhm.
she hasn't been, blacklisted for any particular reasons, but, this this may sound ridiculous, but this kind of decision and this process and pattern of decision making can mean the difference between buying a house or not buying a house for a lot of people. So if
Mhm.
you're I would say especially if you're a parent and you have children that are going off to college, graduating college, and maybe you've made the decision that they need to buy their own first car, this is the kind of advice that I think is critical to them to be in good patterns for money and reliability and just involving themselves in a workplace, etc.
Mhm.
Reliable transportation is important, affordability is important, and it may sound ridiculous to say this could mean the difference between buying a house or not, but if you think about this, if you invested that $300 a month, especially if they had a 401k at work and they
Mhm.
were able to remove that money without taxes and have it build away, they can take that out for the purchase of a home. That's one of the allowed distributions without penalty from a 401k, or you can borrow it for things like that, or they could simply save it after tax and have a down payment in 10 or 15 years when they needed it.
You could
That's the
split it
kind
and
of thing
start
that
an
can help.
investment account, and that's what you
Yeah.
retire on. I mean, I don't know the last time you played the game of life. I have a real
Mhm.
love-hate relationship with it, and the reason is it depends on what card you draw and what your profession is, which sets your salary, and that sets you on one track or the next, right? It's
Mhm.
one of these small things. I remember being a kid and having to put some money away in savings, and I hated it, kicking and screaming. I go, no, I want more Pokemon cards. I want to buy
Mhm.
that video game. I want this piece of candy.
Pokemon
But
cards, huh?
now,
Okay.
oh,
Okay.
well, back in the day, I say back in the day, it's even way worse nowadays. But excuse me, I digress. The point is, now I have at least some form of a
Mhm,
of
mhm.
a retirement account, and I wouldn't if I hadn't done that. And it puts me in a very different position out in the world.
Mhm,
So
mhm.
yeah, we're not trying to make it bigger than it is, but these are some of the important decisions that can certainly add up because cars have a lot of hidden costs, and that's the one that can sneak up on you.
When I was your age, all we wanted was extra flint so we could actually start a fire. 'Cause,
Oh,
yeah, we
yeah,
didn't have these
and enough
we
money
didn't
to
have
buy a
these
second
fancy
stick
things.
in case your first stick broke,
Mhm,
or
mhm,
you could
mhm,
trade it up for
mhm.
another one,
Yep,
right?
yep. It's just counting those, the denarii, right? It's like, it's thing. Anyway,
A new pair
moving
of
along
shoes, since it's both uphill both ways, that sort of things.
in the rain and sleet and snow. Yes, it was
Always
very sad.
snow.
I will say, I lived at 800 feet, and the school is around 200 feet of elevation.
Mhm.
And we got dropped off at school, and we had to hike our butts back up home, and that was a bummer. I'm like, could we not do this the other way?
Other way around. Yeah.
Could we not walk to school and get a ride
Nah, you're
home?
fine.
Anyway,
You're good.
you know what's getting a ride home though? Jeep's
Mm.
Recon EV, supposedly, because it is coming, they claim. We will see the final one soon. It's going to be in
Mhm.
production in 2026.
Yes. Now,
Do you believe it?
Stellantis has been moving the goalposts on a lot of vehicles lately, and I do
Mm-hmm.
kind of have some strong opinions on that. Not just moving them, but then removing them completely.
Mm-hmm.
I do
Mm-hmm.
think the Recon's on its way. Jeep has momentum. They're trying to make moves. They're making changes. I was there a few weeks ago. We have our Grand Wagoneer video up talking about some of the changes they've made there and simplifying the process. And they said, "Hey, we're not done.
Mm-hmm.
You'll
Mm-hmm.
hear from us before the end of the year." That's what I was told. So hopefully, I'm back in Detroit sooner than later, and we'll have more information on this Recon. But my question is, some of the changes they've made. So again, Stellantis, the parent company here, they removed the Ram Rev, the
Mm-hmm.
complete electric truck, from the market, and I could see why. But we're still waiting on the new Rev, which is the Ram Charger. I'm not so sure this is, in their mind, the right time to bring this thing out, because they've
Yeah.
kind of backtracked on a lot of EV stuff. And I think one of the largest groups of EV hesitants is probably going to be the off-road segment. So this one is a
Mm-hmm.
little bit curious. I think it's coming, and I think it's going to be super cool, but
Mm-hmm.
is it going to land the way they want it to?
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's going to be everything we hope, because
Mm,
I will say, uh, I have been accused of being a Stellantis apologist in the past. I
mm,
will say my official thought process on their EVs is that, boy, Stellantis needs to make some more EVs for North America, because they're not good at it and they need some practice. And I think that's the
okay.
only way they're going to get better at it, is by actually trying to make some EVs and actually make good ones. The
That makes
Wagoneer
sense.
S, I was, I think I was ready to be surprised by it once we got it home at the event. I was not quite sold on it. It's like, it's okay,
Hmm.
silly name, etc. We have one here, and
Hmm.
unfortunately for Jeep, we also have an Ioniq 9 at the moment.
Mm.
And the Wagoneer S, it's lacking so much polish. Aside from the fact that the name is stupid, it's lacking a lot of polish. The efficiency is not as good as I had hoped it would be once we actually
Do you
ran
have
it
the
through the paces
do you
here.
have the wider tires, or are they still the silly skinny ones?
Still the silly skinny ones.
Okay.
You know, this next one, the Recon, I think is going to be a better fit. It's Wrangler sized, which could be good.
Mhm.
Interestingly, built on the same platform though as the Charger and as the Wagoneer S electric.
Makes
So
sense.
they just kind
Yeah.
of shrunk everything there. But the doors are going to be able to come off. They're claiming it's going to be off-road capable, not an electric Wrangler, but somewhere between, maybe Jeep Compass and Wrangler capability, which is a
Is it
pretty,
like in Forerunner territory or something like that?
it remains to be seen. I mean, that's a pretty wide gulf between Compass and Wrangler. So where
Yeah.
on that spectrum are we? I don't know, but at least it will look the part with the removable
Mhm.
doors and, skylight, the sunroof kind of set up there. It should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the only, well, not the only, under $100,000, the only electric commuter you can buy with that's convertible ends up being a Wrangler 4xe.
Yep.
So in a weird way, they are getting a little bit ahead of the curve.
Yeah, it'll be kind
I
of a
guess I guess
interesting
maybe you could
twist.
get a Hummer under 100,000, but not by a lot.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, again, I think there's going to be an interesting, cool market for it. And as you and I know, there are a lot of people who buy off-road vehicles that never take them off-road.
Mhm.
It's a persona, it's a style, it's a, hey, I really like the way this looks, and it doesn't need to
Mhm.
do all these things. So in that sense, I think it's going to do just fine. Actually, not too dissimilar to the Hummer, right? The
Yeah.
Hummer is technically capable in a number of areas. Nobody's taking that thing off-road.
No.
So
Yeah.
why is it? Well, that's because someone wants it to be able to, in theory, do it. And all the pictures we've seen, right? The Recon already exists, just not here in the U.S. I think it's a cool looking thing. I would love to drive around one for a
Mhm.
while.
Here's here's what I'm hoping is better this next time around. The and I have to preface this by saying that yes, we've had a 500e, we have another 500e, and there have been other, minor attempts at electrification and plug-in hybrids, of
Mhm.
course, but Wagoneer S and Charger are co-equal the first North American focused EV that Stellantis has ever
Mhm.
done. First
Yeah.
EVs done by the North American side of Stellantis as well. And I think it really shows. I actually was surprised at this when I looked up this trajectory. The Hyundai Kia conglomerate, the Ioniq 9 is the 14th electric vehicle designed for the North American market.
I mean, I was just thinking this is their Chevy Bolt, you know?
Kind of,
And
yeah.
and
It's
and
kind of
and
their
look
Bolt.
how far away in years they are from the Bolt coming out. And
Mhm.
then look at how far I guess the milepost there is, right? They're not going for a small, affordable, cheap and cheerful. They're going
Mhm.
for, hey, look at all of these things they can do. And yeah, they've fallen short on a couple of those.
And that's where I
It's a
have
bit
to say
ambitious.
it's like the Wagoneer is full of missed promise, missed
Mm.
opportunities, I guess you'd say, for lack of a mixed metaphor there.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah.
but missed opportunities in that it has a lot of power. Why doesn't it have crazy wide tires? It could have been positioned as like a trail hawk or track hawk kind of thing, right?
Trackhawk, just from the
Electric
jump,
track
yep.
hawk, yeah. Instead, it got the really skinny tires, but then the range is like it's okay. But if you're going to
Mhm.
sacrifice the one for the other, that's tricky. It did not get the kind of ground clearance that you'd expect in a Jeep, so it can't do
Right.
Jeep things. That's kind of odd right there. The name is
Yeah,
weird,
yeah.
and that
The
confuses
name is super
everybody.
weird, especially now
Yeah.
that the Wagoneer doesn't exist at all. So is this
Hmm.
now a Grand Wagoneer S?
No, apparently it's still going to be a Wagoneer S, where it should have just been a Grand Cherokee V. You know,
Mhm,
because that's Grand Cherokee size, built on the platform. It's also going to be Grand Cherokee, et cetera, yada yada yada. Right.
mhm.
The front trunk is entertainingly small, although I did discover that it's a good place to change your baby when they've got a dirty diaper because the rubber mat's
Okay.
there and it's so high off the ground that you can actually change a
You're just
baby
not
up
having to
there.
bend over, it's just right there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Pull
just
out
right
pull
there.
out
It's
your
like,
your
it's
your,
okay.
uh, two-stage charge cable and then go ahead and put
Yeah.
the baby there.
But little things like only two different levels of throttle liftoff regen. You have to
Mhm,
dig around through a menu to find them. The charging speeds are not great. They're okay, but they're not great.
mhm,
Um, why is it that it's all electric and it has an electronically controlled, reduction gear transmission?
mhm.
Why is it that you can't just stop a car and hit the start stop button and then exit the vehicle? No,
Yeah.
you hit the stop button and the car automatically parks itself, but then it turns the radios and accessories into accessory mode. They don't go off. So then you have to press the button again if you actually make that mistake. And it's an easy
Right,
mistake to make if you have other cars in the house because if you have a GM EV or a Tesla or a bunch of different EVs, you just don't turn it off at all. You just park it and then you walk away. You split and it does
right.
its thing,
You
right?
can either park and leave or turn on
Mhm.
and off and leave.
Right. Or some
Yeah,
EVs like the Hyundais, etc., you can foot still on the brake, you roll into the parking spot, hit the off button, turns off. And then you get to leave the car and lock it, etc., like a normal car. So some of those
yeah.
things just seem odd in the Wagoneer S. And then there are those reliability teething troubles that Wagoneer has had.
I've heard of a few, and I actually, when we first saw this thing, I went, I've always liked the way the Grand Cherokee looked, and this just has a little bit of a sportier Grand
Hmm.
Cherokee vibe to it. I don't think all these, especially when you're talking about Grand Cherokees and that sort of thing, they're not Jeeping it. They could Jeep it, and
Yeah.
it's always there. But those are your around town cruisers. Those are dropping kids off at school every day of the week. Those sorts of things. So the
Hmm.
ground clearance didn't bother me, and the tires I thought were hilariously skinny. I mean, we left,
Hmm.
four-wheel burnout marks on that thing because there's just so little tire and so much torque. I was surprised. I think I really like this thing. I like the sound system, it had that premium feel to it, but
Sound
yeah, if
system
you got
is
to keep
nice.
taking it to the if you got to keep taking it to the dealership, that does not
Hmm.
feel as premium.
Yeah.
And if you
It's like,
start limping home in turtle mode, that's not luxury either.
yeah. And that's where I am torn because I think the interior is relatively well done for a Grand Cherokee price tag. And that's the problem. It's
Hmm.
70 something thousand dollars. Although
Yeah.
apparently people are actually getting them for around $40,000 out the door. The tax credit situation, that I don't know how that's going to affect goings in the future, but
Right.
previously there was $7,500 off plus a whole ton of cash on the hood, etc. So people were
Yeah.
walking out with some screaming deals.
I'll
At
tell you
that
what, for
price, I
forty
think
five
it's
thousand
fine.
dollars, I'll get a Grand Wagoneer S all day of the
The
week. I mean, that's a
Swagoneer.
great car. I know. It's Wagoneer. Yep. But then then it's
But
tough.
here's
Why
the
are you
thing,
buying a car at such a discount? Like, shouldn't it just
right?
be good enough to sell at the price it's built for?
And why wouldn't you get a Mach E or an Ioniq 5 or a Model Y? Like, what other things could you be buying for that same price, even at the lower price point? That's the
Mhm.
tricky part.
Yeah, and there are a lot. I mean, the good news is there are a lot of great options out there. And
Mhm.
you want performance, go get a Mustang Mach-E GT, and that's going to
Mhm.
have not just it's not on a full second generation, but they've worked out whatever year one kinks are there for sure. And they've got a much better idea of how the system works. And yeah, no, it's a fair point.
Yeah, and the ride quality in the Wagoneer S and the handling on roads that I'm familiar with, now that we've been able to get it home, this,
Mhm.
guys, is why it's important always to remember when we're first driving a car, they're on roads that the manufacturers have chosen for the vehicle. Obviously, we don't get to spend a week in the car, we get to spend a day in the car, so it's representative of what you're
Hours.
gonna experience, but we don't have the choice to go pick a specific road surface and say, "Well, how does this car handle this kind of surface?"
Mhm.
Um, I will say that the Wagoneer S steering comes across as a little too twitchy and a little rubbery isolated at the same time,
Yeah.
and
Okay. Interesting.
the suspension is firm and yet wobbly.
Floaty.
I'm trying to find the right word here, but it's not. The rear end motions are a little bit unsettled, so the
Okay.
motions in the rear are a little unusual over some pavement surfaces. The combination, I think, could lead some people in the back seat to being a little car sick.
Mhm.
Um, I noticed that the constant corrections that you might have to do on narrower winding roads also lead the car to think that you are tired and that you need a break.
Mm. Oh, interesting. That
So
came
if
up
you're
once or twice.
yeah, so if you're trying to hustle it on a road where you're kind of, because again, skinny tires, so you're really trying to work this thing because it's not a lot of
Yeah.
grip going on, a lot of weight, not a lot of grip. All these
Right.
various things are compounding, and then the car goes, "Do you need a break?" Um,
Are you
I'm
okay?
thinking, no, you need a better steering rack and better tires, buddy.
And then the problem there, you want to talk about compounding, then you turn off the sleepy alerts, and then when you need them, they're not there.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Although, if there's one alert that I don't like in cars, it is the sleepy distracted alert.
Mm.
I
I
think it's
mean,
not well done. And
yeah, the way they implement it can be funky.
I have to say, the Grenadier does the same thing with the sleepy alert because it's such a handful steering on roads. I mean, you're constantly, working that
Nonstop.
wheel.
Yeah.
Um, it does the same thing, but at least it's charming and cute in other ways,
Mhm.
and the Wagoneer is not in those same ways.
Uh,
So it's
yeah.
you know, Grenadier gets away with it sometimes.
But will the recon be charming in that way?
That's
That's the
where I'm
question.
that's what I'm wondering. Will it be? And
Mhm.
I don't know.
And it will be, assuming that we see it in 2026, and I
Mhm,
think we
mhm.
will. At this point, if they
The
moved
price
the
tag is the
goalpost
thing.
again, it'd be a shock. It'll be the first of its kind, right? We just don't have an off-road
Yeah.
EV. Again, let's say Hummer aside.
Mhm, mhm.
So it could, in the first couple years, see some pretty good sales if it's fun and quirky enough.
I would say if it could be only $5,000 more than a Bronco Sport, then it'd be good.
Oh, yeah, but
If this is Stellantis's so far pricing schedule that we've seen on Charger and Wagoneer S, then it is dead dodo running at the very beginning,
mm,
because that's the ultimate problem with Wagoneer S, I would say, is it's so expensive. Even though you're not going to pay that price at a dealer, that's the price you're going to see on the configurator on their website, and you're not even going to look at it.
right, you're gonna stop there.
Yeah, I can forgive a lot of things for the right price. I've
Sure.
said that for me at least, I think that there are two design methods that are quote unquote easy.
Mhm.
Value, which is what you get for your money, is the hard one, because
Hmm.
that's how much are you getting, how much does it cost? That middle ground.
Right.
Simply targeting the cheapest car in America, pretty easy. Start cutting stuff until you get to $10,000, good. And then you can
Hmm.
say, well, hey, it's a shitty car, but it was cheap. The opposite side, the opulent side, you could make the best car, the fastest car, the most luxurious car, etc., and you could charge whatever you want for it because it's the best, right?
Hmm.
It's
Hmm.
everything else in the middle is this tricky part, and the closer to the middle you get to this average $50,000 price point, I would say the harder that work becomes, and that is where Wagoneer S falls apart. It's like, what are you getting for $70,000? And you are not getting
Right.
enough.
That you're not getting somewhere else.
Mhm.
You're not getting in a more competitive or competent
Mhm.
EV, that you're not getting in a better luxury hybrid or ICE
Mhm.
uh,
Anything.
alternative. Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the I would say that is the tricky part with Wagoneer S for its price tag in my brain.
Hmm.
Again, bearing in mind you're not gonna pay that, but for MSRP, I honestly cannot think of a single vehicle that on balance is not better, period.
Sure. Yeah, you have to like it, right? You have to love
Yes.
the look and the feel and I would be one of those folks that goes, "Yeah, I actually really like this as a package." When you step back and you go, "I like what's
Mhm.
going on here." But if you
Yeah.
start piecing it, you go, "Oh, well, that's better or that's better."
Mhm.
That's going to be tough. You know what else is getting a little bit more expensive, and by a little bit more, I mean I don't know yet. Is the new RAV4.
Yeah.
We spent some time with it and we were told it's going to start now all hybrid. So it's always going to get a little bit more expensive than the outgoing model, but it really makes the hybrids overall a little bit cheaper, all things considered. We were told it's going to start in the low 30,000s.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
can't think of a more vague way to describe how the pricing of a structure of a vehicle is than it starts in the low 30,000s.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go Toyota's definition of low has been awkward in the past. So, currently, the 2025 RAV4 hybrid is 32,850 starting. I am going
Mhm.
to bet that it's going to be more mid 30s. I'm going to guess just under 35,
Yeah,
especially
with
with
destination.
destination.
Yeah.
Um some estimates I
Is
know,
see, you and I would have a mid 30,000s,
yeah,
34 to 36, right? But are they saying under 35,000 is lows and above is highs,
they're
and there
not
is no
saying.
mid? Yeah.
I'm gonna go ahead and guess though that it's gonna be right around that $35,000 mark. Some people I know that are industry analysts that work for S&P and Global Mobility
Mhm.
and a number of other companies, they're actually guessing more like 36. So I'm hoping that's
Mm.
not the case. Of course,
Right, we're
they're
looking
also
at a
saying
34.5 plus destination,
right.
something like that.
That's what they're thinking. They're thinking it will be just under 35 before destination, over 35 after destination, which
Mhm.
does make sense given what you're getting in the new model. And tell us what we are getting in that new RAV4.
I mean, it's gotten a significant update. I will say the exterior and the powertrains feel more updated than the interior does, but that's more of a design choice than it is about the technology. We have some different screens set up. We're looking at a 12.3 for the driver, and it's either a 10.5 or a 12.9, sort of an interesting ratio there. But Toyota doesn't give you the full screen when you do your CarPlay or Android Auto. They kind of keep a reserve to themselves. So that's not bad, and the equipment levels are competitive. You'll get heated seats here and a moonroof there, based on the other opportunities in
Hmm.
the segment. But everything's hybrid, and we have doubled the availability of plug-in hybrid models,
Hmm.
so you can get a wider spans of equipment
And
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 it's a new next
personalities.
generation hybrid too. So it's
It
not
is. So it's
not a
the fifth
transplant.
gen hybrid, sixth gen plug-in hybrid, which I thought was kind of interesting. We know Toyotas for their hybrids, and so, but you don't think of them for their plug-in hybrids as much. But they've been doing a lot of work there. It's more power, it's more range. I don't know if
Mhm.
it's more efficient. It probably is. But at
It
the end of
looked
the
like it
day,
depended on the trim. So most
yeah,
mainline trims of plug-in hybrid are a tiny bit more efficient. Looks like 1 mile per gallon better. And then the GR is
and the
in
Woodland
the
probably,
yeah, is in the 30s range for efficiency, which is still pretty darn good given 324 horsepower. Because that's the big
yeah,
big
and
thing. Everybody got more power this generation.
Right. So it's more power and either same or better efficiency, which is always
Mhm.
great. I mean, that does feel like a generational leap in the powertrain technology. And then the Woodland and the GR, Woodland is going for knobbier tires. It's got a lift. Obviously, that's always going to be less efficient. And then the GR is lower to the ground, but it's going for stickier tires. So there's your rolling
Mhm.
resistance right there. And those I think are doing a good job of really bookending, the extremes of what this vehicle is and what it might be used for. I think finding somewhere in the middle, like an XSE, is probably where I'd find myself. Give me the plug-in hybrid there, 51, 52 miles of
Mm.
EV range, something like that. A nice look, plenty of equipment, but it's going to get expensive.
Yes. RAV4 pricing, I think, has done relatively well in comparison. We recently actually were looking at Sportage and a bunch of other entries in the segment Forester. So we were
Mhm.
doing the pricing chart layout here that we often have in our videos. And I have to say, I think RAV4 is right in a good sweet spot, bearing in mind that there are fewer discounts on RAV4 than some of the
Mhm.
competition. They still exist, and you'll still be able to get the RAV4s for a little bit less than MSRP here and there, especially if you're willing to travel and go visit some of those larger Toyota dealers.
Yeah.
I am going to be curious to see how the average Toyota shopper takes this, because I was surprised by some of our commenters and our viewers that were saying, "Oh my God, Toyota has lost me. I'm never going to buy a Toyota again because the RAV4 now has their most reliable drivetrain in it."
Yeah, that one lost me a little bit. And here's the thing: there's an upfront cost difference between an internal
Hmm.
combustion and a hybrid. That's true. But we're at the point now where the efficiency difference starts to add up quickly. We're not
Hmm.
talking about in 10 years your hybrid will pay off. We're talking about
Hmm.
3, 4 years your hybrid will pay off.
Yeah.
And at the end of that time frame, you are still left at this point with the more powerful and more efficient, and again, incredibly reliable system.
Hmm.
I'm not sure I see the miss, and that feels like
Yeah.
a hate hybrid for the sake of hating hybrid.
Hmm.
And I just the only argument that I can see
There's
is
also
that
just sort
your
of a
driving is
buying into
exclusively
it.
highway.
Yeah, there's also sort of the buying into the misinformation or fear around them. And
Hmm.
even on the highway, you're probably going to be getting better efficiency in the hybrid, because I do not know of a single person who, a lot of people say, "Oh, I only quote unquote drive highway miles." Okay, so you wake
Right.
up in the morning and you live at exit 59 and you just
Yep.
immediately bump it up to 75 and you stay at 75 all day long, and then you just,
No
I don't know,
traffic.
you just what, put it in neutral, turn the car off and just coast to a stop at your office. Like, yeah, people drive more and less highway, but even on the highway in average driving cycles,
Yeah.
Toyota's hybrids are more efficient than their non-hybrids. Like, there's no way
And more
around that.
powerful.
Yeah, and
And
more
more
powerful.
powerful.
Because
Yeah.
on hybrid systems, Toyota's hybrid system has an infinite number of ratios available for the engine. So it can always keep that engine at an optimal RPM for your speed, which is why highway fuel efficiency is still quite good in those vehicles. Not as good
Hmm.
as the city economy number usually, but still quite good. And even on the highway, you're still going to be finding yourself in situations where regenerative braking is going to be useful. You go up and down a mountain pass, you go up and over an
Hmm.
overpass, etc. You want the extra
Stopping,
power for passing.
starting in
Yeah,
traffic, the whole thing.
it's like it's still a win. The big thing though for me though is this fear of battery replacement and battery cost. And I'm not saying
Hmm.
this is a non-existent fear. I'm saying it is largely an irrational fear. It's
Right.
not wrong to worry about it. It's not wrong to think about it and ask
Hmm.
questions about it. I would say
Hmm.
it's wrong to be afraid of it, because first off,
But I read a
battery.
story. I
But
read
you
a
read a
story,
story.
Alex. I know a guy who knows a guy who said
Uh-huh.
that.
Yes. Back in 1999, their Prius needed a
Correct.
new battery. Um, the important thing to remember is the battery is covered by the powertrain warranty in the vehicle for one.
Hmm.
So under the warranty period, there's absolutely no concern. The second thing is true battery failures are incredibly rare, incredibly,
Hmm.
incredibly rare. The next thing is there's this concern that your battery is going to wear and they don't last forever. Yes, your battery will wear over time. even if your battery after 10 years only has 10% of its capacity available, you're still getting better fuel economy than if you were not driving the hybrid because of the rest of the
Mhm.
hybrid system design. And the last thing is, as we've talked about before, when your vehicle is 15 years old, et cetera, like we have a good friend that has a first generation Escape hybrid
Okay.
with over 250,000 miles on it now.
Which
They are
everyone thinks they drive their new car for
right.
250,000 miles.
They
Yep.
are finally on their second battery. And the
Mm.
second battery, including installation, was $1,000. And they came to his house to do it because, in
Wow.
reality, by the time you get to this age in vehicles, you're not
Mhm.
buying new batteries. You're buying reconditioned batteries on the
Right.
secondary market, which are actually still quite affordable.
Mhm.
And this third party company in Denver, it just is like, yeah, we'll roll and drop a battery in your car. It was done in 30 minutes. They popped up the
Dang.
back seat, dropped the new battery in, reset the trouble codes on the car, and
Mhm.
hey presto, away you go.
Voila, new battery.
And when you think about how much fuel and how much money has been saved over 250,000 miles, a thousand
From the
bucks,
hybrid versus the non-hybrid. I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely no brainer to just pop a new battery in that puppy and keep it cooking along.
And I think
Um,
the fear comes from the early hybrids that
mhm,
they were still figuring this technology out. That happens everywhere, every time in the history of the world, right? The first cell phone
mhm,
goes, "What's this? I gotta plug it in. This is crazy. My landline
yeah,
doesn't." We see it in every new technology. So it's
yeah,
not like it's never happened, and like you said,
mhm.
it's not like it won't happen. But
Yeah,
how long do
and how
you
many
keep your car?
transmissions and again, how many transmissions would the gasoline car have been through? This this
Oh,
is this is part of the
yeah,
question. How many
right.
transmissions could it have gone through? It's maybe none, maybe one.
Maybe none, but
Maybe none, maybe
probably
one.
one.
But I'll tell you one thing, replacing a transmission in a RAV4 or a Ford Escape is gonna be a whole lot more expensive than replacing a battery after 10
Yeah,
years.
just the shop cost,
Mhm.
just the labor, not even the parts.
And that is where the design of the planetary power split system is important. If we're talking about a Hyundai Kia hybrid system or the upcoming Genesis hybrid systems, or
Mhm,
importantly, a Toyota Hybrid Max drive system,
mhm,
those repair costs long term are going to be substantially similar to a gasoline vehicle plus a battery because they have
mhm.
regular transmissions. But if we're talking about Toyota's core hybrid system in RAV4, Crown, Camry, Corolla, etc.,
Prius.
Prius, that kind of
Mhm,
thing, those hybrid systems are mechanically incredibly simple, and that is why they last so long. The longest lasting part of your Toyota hybrid is probably going to be the transmission. I know that some old Priuses have some engine issues logically caused by their constant starting and stopping over time.
mhm.
Well designed, but
Again,
eventually you'll get there
yeah,
eventually.
work on the technology and
Yeah.
make that better, smoother, etcetera, yep.
I have honestly, no joke, I have never actually heard of a true mechanical failure in
Mhm,
a Chrysler, Ford, GM's Voltec, or Toyota traditional hybrid system. I have never,
mhm.
ever heard of one. You will hear about electronics issues, you'll hear about
Right.
this or that. Actual core hybrid system needing to get replaced, that two motor transmission unit itself, I have never heard of that. You could have
Mm,
bearings go wrong, maybe here and there, but since there is so little going on inside, there are no clutches, there are no bands, there's not even a reverse gear in there, so
right.
there's so little to go wrong. That's why I can't imagine why you wouldn't want the hybrid system in a RAV4.
Yeah, I wouldn't not want the hybrid system. There's just
Yeah.
things that make sense, you know?
The only thing I could conceive of is you just want to burn more gas.
Yeah, you've got the oil rig out back and it's free 99 and,
Mhm, mhm.
go for it. Yeah.
Now, tell us how the GR went because on the flip side of this, Toyota's trying to make a sporty entry in this segment. And then I would say on top of the wanting to burn more gas, I might want a more quote unquote traditional transmission feel. How has Toyota addressed that or not in GR?
I really like the GR Sport for what it is. There are so many vehicles out there that don't really need more power or don't really benefit from more power,
Mhm.
but you want it to handle better. You want it to feel a little racier. You want it to have a certain look. I was just looking at the Sentra. and the Sentra is not racy, but it has a cool look, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so how can you find a balance there? Well, you put a spoiler on a RAV4, that's going to give you a racy look. I think it is. I don't know if we're talking about performance or dynamic driving. If a Rav4 is somewhere around a 5/10, right, just a
Mm-hmm.
dead
Mm-hmm.
middle, it's like, yeah, it's fine, but obviously it's not. This is probably 1 to 2 tenths, two on the high end, better, and so it does feel a little bit more engaged, a little bit more exciting, a little bit more dynamic, which means also
Let's
on the
put
back
this
end a little bit less comfortable.
well, let's put this in perspective because it is the most horsepower in the segment by actually a
Yeah.
pretty healthy number. So 324, right?
Yep.
Um, it's slightly lowered and it's got grippier tires on it. So
And slightly wider stance too.
yeah. So if we were to compare this to, say, the closest entry in the segment, which is not saying a lot, but Mazda CX-5 Turbo, like
Yeah, that's probably it.
where are you on GR Grav 4?
Grab well, GR Sport, they're not trying to make
Yeah,
it
okay.
too
Okay.
GR-ish.
We'll call it a
I
Grav 4
Sure.
versus
I I
CX-5
will also
Turbo.
say a lot of people were saying CX-70, and I think I might have mentioned this is like, the biggest
Mm,
move in the segment, and they were saying CX-70 is bigger. I didn't mean in size, and also CX-70 is not the same car. Just we're
no,
talking
yeah,
about
it
different
was like
categories.
holy
And they have a
holy crap.
plug-in, but
Yeah.
not the same
It's
thing.
Grand Highlander size. Toyota has a complete model in between the size of a CX-70
Correct.
competitor and
Correct.
RAV4. So like, oh my
So
god, like
the
that's a bad
CX-5
comparison.
Turbo and this.
We'll bleep it out in the video, but what journalist was that?
I know those commentators. That was our audience saying
Oh,
saying,
our
"Hey, what
audience.
about the?"
Oh, I'm
Yes,
throwing our
yeah.
audience under the bus. Crazy guys. Crazy,
Well,
crazy.
sometimes it happens.
Yes.
So I do think the CX-5 Turbo is probably going to be still more engaging to drive. It's going to be CX. The Mazdas are usually a little bit tighter on the suspension,
Mhm,
and in a
mhm.
way that I
Skinny
appreciate, but not
tires,
everyone
though.
does for comfort. Yeah, we're not talking about the same kind of all-wheel drive torque
Mhm.
off the line thing.
True, true,
So
true.
if you race them, I think you're going to get better performance in the Rav4. If I was
Yeah,
constantly
unquestionably
canyon
faster in the
carving,
RAV4.
I think I'd probably want to go with the CX-5. But if it was my
Mm,
money and I
mm,
said I'm comparing these, what do I get? I'm going to go get the Rav.
hmm,
I
hmm.
am, especially if I want sporty look and feel.
Now,
That's the Rav.
if you're driving it hard, are you satisfied with the plug-in hybrid's feel in that canyon carving situation that I don't know who is doing with
Right.
2.5 children and a Labrador in the back, but
Yeah.
are you
Yeah. Yeah.
happy with that, or are you more interested in CX-5's 6-speed automatic, which is a few gears behind the norm, and the
Right.
tires are a little skinny, but I think the
I'm
suspension's nicely done
probably
and the steering rack's nice.
Yeah, I'm probably happy enough, but I'm going to give the nod to the CX-5.
Hmm,
Right. So
okay,
it's not,
okay.
I'm not saying it's not going to be better in those situations. I just think that the GR Sport provides enough of a different experience than the other RAVs that it makes sense to exist. It's not going to be for everyone. We're not saying
Mhm,
it's a high performance car. It's not, but it is the attention to detail, right? The suspension tuning and the wider track and tires, and again, obviously the look, the steering
mhm,
is beefed up a little bit, so you get a little bit more steering response, and it's got all the color accenting pieces that you're looking
mhm.
for in part of the experience, and it's the one that gets paddle shifters.
Yeah.
So
Do you think it's too heavy? Should they have made a Gur Sport with a
no,
half-sized battery maybe instead?
no, no, because it wouldn't have made any sense, and it would have been more expensive, for the extra manufacturing cost, and nobody would have cared because no one's taking this to a track. If you want to do an
Mhm.
autocross in it, go for it, and you'll probably have fun. But everyone else will beat you. Everyone, every single person. But you
Except
can
that
have a great
person
time
in
with
the
the kids
Nissan
in the
Versa.
back.
The Nissan Versa wouldn't beat it.
No, they win because of the smile on their face, going, "Oh my
Ah,
god, this
okay.
is crazy!" The fastest
Okay,
the
okay.
fastest car in the world's a rental, and it's kind of a similar vibe. But
Uh,
we have the kids in the back, and they're going to have a blast. So go for it.
hmm, hmm. I think
It's going to be expensive, and I wouldn't pay for it.
we'll end this episode by regaling everybody with the tale of our yearly checkup on our Grenadier and
Oh
how this has
yes.
gone. So I have been meaning to do a yearly update on the Grenadier, but we were waiting on some warranty repairs that took
Uh huh.
forever. Want to guess how
Waiting
long
for
it took?
parts or an appointment
Yes,
or
parts. Want to guess how long it
okay.
took to get the parts? Oh, I should tell you what went wrong. So,
Yeah.
um, on the inside, 3 of the 4 door panels had some weird bubbling in the slush molded plastic bits. So,
Okay.
for viewers and listeners that don't know how slush molding works in cars, that's when you look at the average new car dashboard and it has that, Naugahyde texture and it's squishy to the touch, but there's like a
Mhm.
firmness below that. That's what's typically a slush molded process. And so basically there's like a soft plastic on the outside that has that texture that you feel when you touch the dashboard. Then there is a middle layer of softer material, so kind of a foamy texture inside that gives
Mhm.
it that squish, that touch that you want. And then it's backed by a hard piece of plastic. And the way that this usually works is hard plastic is molded first. You then put this in a form with the outer plastic, the plastic that you actually touch. These two are then jammed into the form, and then they squeeze in the slushy bit in the middle, and then it's all set. And then it comes out as this now bonded together piece that has the nice squishy bits. Well,
Mhm.
sometimes the process goes wrong. So in the Grenadier, 3 of the 4 door panels process went wrong, and there were bubbles starting to appear. So these layers
Mm.
weren't properly bonded, and they were the top part of the door, so where the sunlight is beaten down on
Right.
it. So bubbly bits after only a year and 8,000 miles.
Right. For a
Um,
brand new company that isn't high volume
yeah.
production, how many spare door
Well, the
panels
doors are
did they
probably
make?
made by Vallejo. So the door panels are all made
Yeah.
by the same companies that make everybody's doors, right? So it could have just been a forming or a shaping issue or whatever. It's not the
On a
worst
new
thing.
mold.
Right. It's not the worst thing ever because they're covered under warranty. It still is a little bit head scratchy going like, that's kind of weird. Hopefully it doesn't happen after warranty. So that's that. But at any rate, so how long do you think it took to get these door panels?
I think we ended up at 3.5 months.
Oh, pretty close. It was a little over 4 months.
Okay.
A little over 4 months for the door panels. And how far away do you think the Grenadier dealer is in
Well,
hours
I
of travel?
that one I already know because of many
Oh,
conversations
darn it.
about the Grenadier and availability of servicing and unfortunate lack of concierge servicing where they aren't really
Hmm,
coming to
hmm.
pick it up for you and drop it back off. So go ahead and tell the people.
Yeah, so unfortunately, Marin is about an hour and a half from home, a little more than an hour from the office. And then, of course, you get the car there. And because of the timing of servicing and the volume of servicing, et cetera, maybe you'll get a loaner car, maybe you won't.
Mhm.
We did not get a loaner car because of the number of things that needed to be addressed and the time that would have taken. So I then had to take the commuter train back home, which
Mhm.
is a whole different problem. But yeah,
Right.
Bart takes a while to get around the bay. Great if you're going San Francisco to Oakland or inside Oakland or San Francisco. If you're making your way from one
The
part,
whole loop.
yeah, that is a very long loop. Yes, the trains reach a maximum speed of 80 miles an hour for a millisecond somewhere. Yeah,
Right.
not overly helpful on that front. And then I
It's funny.
had to
I can
repeat the
tell when you're on the
process.
train because I got more text messages about different things.
I was trying. I got some work done. Got some work done.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
so we had
yeah.
that done. I have good news. The speed
Okay.
warning, clicky click, dead.
Finally gone.
Stuck a fork in it. It is done. Thank
Yeah.
heavens.
And is that a software update they had to do at the dealer?
Yes, it is, and it is a software
Okay.
update that somehow took hours and hours and
Well,
hours.
software is
Apparently,
complicated. It's
so
just it's not.
complicated. Don't know why that went wrong. There was an issue that the dealer had created last time it was in that got addressed. It was simple. They did a tire rotation and forgot to update the system. So
Yeah.
that caused a little bit of confusion. It wasn't really a problem once we understood it, but we're getting a low tire pressure warning on the car. And I'm like, but the car says that tire pressure's low, but when I went back to the rear and checked it, like, no, it's right, is because the front and rear tire pressures are different in the Grenadier for the recommendations, and
Right.
that disconnect was there. So that had to get addressed. The HVAC system has an issue where not all the lines were insulated from the factory, so you can
Okay.
get condensation and dripping into the footwell. That's kind of a bummer if you have the
Not.
carpet
Yeah. Not
formats.
great. Yeah.
So they had to take the whole dashboard apart for that. We had the door panels. What else did we have done? There was an evaporative emissions error
Hmm.
that caused a check engine light that was actually a software bug, and so that also had to get software updated.
Was it just the gas cap left off?
No, it was a
No.
fuel
Okay.
plausibility error, I think is how it's phrased in the software. And so it's like the
Mm.
car's calculation for like how much gas is it consuming versus how much
Hmm.
gasoline it should have consumed, and there was a mismatch in the calculation, so caused an error. So that got fixed. And then we had a Safari window clip that fell out of the car that got
Okay.
reinserted.
Yeah. So that's a fair amount of work.
Yep. So car was gone for 5 days.
Yeah, that's also a fair amount of time. Yeah. They didn't get you a Versa as a rental to and from in the
Just a little bit of
meantime?
time. I would have been so happy with a cheap and cheerful Versa.
Yeah, I know.
I actually wanted to get a Versa for one of our test vehicles. I wanted an absolutely base, boring
Manual.
refrigerator white manual transmission. That could have been epic. No one was interested.
I
Everyone said
know.
no.
It's a shame. We have all these things that we're interested in, and the people just aren't on board.
The
Oh well.
people that we do this for the people. So
We only do it for the people. I
that
mean, for
is the
us a little
thing.
bit, but
And speaking of the people, I have a question for our viewer readership, not
hmm
readership, viewer watchership, listenership,
well, no, viewer listenership. Yeah,
viewer
yeah.
listenership. I promise everybody this is tea.
Listen, viewership.
There's no day drinking today, although maybe there should be. I don't know. Um, on legroom, we're doing a lot of legroom measuring here, and this
Hmm.
has brought me to a secondary question of how useful is it to measure legroom with the front seats all the way back in their tracks, because the average adult in North America is like 5'6", 5'7", something like that. Average male
Hmm.
is just under 6 feet tall. So who's got the seat 44 inches rearward? I don't know who's got it back there.
Right. It's one of those like you and I can like depend on the model,
Yeah.
we can tippy toe touch it, but not really the safest way to drive.
Yeah, so it's like, should we set the seat somewhere else and
Mm,
then measure the benefit, of course, to having the seat all the way back, if we're just noodling this through, and Travis and I, the benefit to having the seat all the way down and all the way back and doing our measurements from there is I'm not sitting in a different sitting position than Travis. And so where
right.
is that
Consistency.
front seat? That is the question. Where is that front seat? Um,
Yeah.
but I do agree with our viewers over on on Facebook and YouTube that the seat back to seat back measurement, where we're talking about the distance between the back of the front seat and the front of the back seat,
Hmm.
that measurement is the most critical for many reasons. You know, child seat fitment, luggage stuffed in the back, the feeling of roominess, the distance
Hmm.
between your knees and that front seat back, because your leg is not going to change, your thigh is not going to change dimensionally, so you still got to be
Yeah,
able to
probably not.
jam it in this seat back area. um and so that is the measurement I think that I'm focusing on for new graphics, but we
Hmm.
do need everybody to sound off and send us questions, emails, phone calls, etc., about where should that front seat be.
Yeah, and again, you and I sit in different positions, and we're basically the same height, but our proportions are different, right?
Hmm.
And you and I are above the average, so we want to. I
Hmm.
know. Do we need multiple points where we have a high and a low, or I don't know. We can
I
figure it
think
out.
logically I may need to put on my crown and
Mm.
and
King Alex is back.
as
Yeah.
king of the channel,
Hmm.
maybe we just have to find an actual measurement from accelerator pedal to front seat back, and that is the number we use for seat position in everything for this measurement.
Well, I await the order when we have one.
Yeah, I don't know what that will be. We'll have to cook that one up. Maybe we base this on the size of the average adult, which is going to be short for some people, etc.
Yeah,
Being
tall
being
for
that
others. Yeah.
being that we're two dudes, and not everybody that buys a car is a dude. So
Yeah.
if we talk about the average adult height in North America, maybe we focus on the average adult height rather than the average male height, something like that. Anyway, let us know
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah. So we can get it all figured out.
yeah, you can send us voice memos to hey@autobuyersguide.com. You can call us at 669-842-1947, and you can send those typey questions to hey@autobuyersguide.com as well.
Yes, you can.
See you later.